Yo everybody and welcome to my top 10 games of 2019. A couple of things before we get started. There are definitely a few games that are missing from this list that I would probably include in the list. However, I didn't get around to playing them this year. Also, I'd like to make a special mention of Boneworks, the VR game. That would likely be on this list. However, I'm still getting used to VR, so I wasn't able to really delve deep enough into the game to really give it a fair go. With those 2 points out of the way, let's start the list off. At number 10, we have Super Mario Maker 2. Now, this game was really nicely made, really nice sequel to the original Super Mario Maker, and just loads of new features and whatnot, new items and conveniences of life. However, I'm not that big into making levels and such. I mean, don't get me wrong, I enjoy doing it, but it's also the type of thing I get distracted really quickly and I tend to never finish things. And when it comes to the platforming side of things, the actual playing the levels, and while I do enjoy the 2D Mario games and whatnot, it's also not the stuff that I enjoy the most. At number 9, we have Pokemon Sword and Shield. This is a really good game with a lot of good concepts and ideas and stuff put into it. However, I feel like some things were ruined because of it. One of the problems I think that have is general level design and map layout and such, whereas the routes don't really feel like much challenges to get from one point to another, and the map feels deceptively small. And as much as I really enjoy the wild, that too isn't as varied as I thought it was going to be. It's all just one wild. I was expecting like 2 or maybe 3 of them like dotted around the game. Also, while I never particularly care too much about story in Pokemon games, this one had a very lacking one with a very frustrating ending section that definitely got me annoyed when I was playing it. But overall, there's a lot of good things here and I'm not too mad. Also, I want to make sure I give Phalanx the Cute Game of the Year award. Yeah, him specifically. Moving on to number 8, we have the Resident Evil 2 remake. Now, this remake was really well done and very impressive, and it was nice to see a lot of the old Resident Evil 2 scenario, or the PlayStation specifically, redone in the modern era. The gameplay was fun and it was very enjoyable having Mr. X chase you around the PlayStation and whatnot as well. However, the thing that gets me more than anything else in this game is the 2 scenarios and how they just don't work together at all. Now, I would have much rather having just a Leon A, Claire B, and just leave it at that, and have it be that, you know, they actually interweave better and things line up, rather than just have it 4 ones and all 4 essentially the same with slight differences. At least have Leon and Claire be different is all I really wanted. Overall, I definitely feel they just dropped the ball in that regard. Also, I found the labs really dull. At number 7, we have Phoenix Point. As a fan of modern XCOM games, picking up this game was a no-brainer, and it really does feel like a nice evolutionary step from XCOM with a lot of the aiming mechanics and whatnot. On top of that, the way the geoscope works and you have to go around and discover the places, that's a lot of fun. And there are a lot of deep concepts and mechanics in this game, such as boss enemies and the way that you can disable body parts, the whole variation of enemies that will slowly progress and change to how you play. There's a lot of good things here. However, I feel like the game still needs a bit more polish. Either needs a bit more polish or more balancing. Like it's hard to say right now. I've not delved deep enough into it as compared to XCOM, where I've spent many hours playing and being able to say, oh yeah, the difficulty was right and fair, but it's hard to say because I feel like it just needs maybe a bit more time in the oven. I don't know, it's hard to say, but it definitely gets that itch that as soon as I have started that campaign, every time I stop playing it or had enough, I give it now and I'm like, oh, I just want to play it some more. So they've got that going for it. At number 6, we have Catherine Full Body. Now, this game is a very interesting game. It's essentially Catherine 2, or as close as to Catherine 2 as we will ever get. Given Catherine's plot and how the whole thing works, it would be really difficult to actually make a Catherine 2 and have it make sense. while I'm sure they could try and brute force a sequel, it's probably not going to happen because of how the story is made out. It's a very singular story, so there's essentially Catherine too, and they add a lot of new things. You can play all the puzzles again in a remix mode, adding new mechanics and just new layouts and stuff, as well as the new Rin, the new Catherine, for Vincent to struggle over. The one thing I would say about this game that I'm still not sure how I feel about it is the pacing. Whereas, as someone who has played the original Catherine a bunch, going to this one I feel like the pacing's a bit off. Now, I don't know if that's because in my head I'm still thinking of the original Catherine and how that was laid out, and then this one's a lot more rushed and jumbled slightly. Rushed in the terms of they just have so much more to go through because they have a new character to introduce and play out, but that is also part of the problem. I feel like Rin definitely feels a bit forced in some cases. However, that might just be me, given how I'm used to the older version, having a new character just pushed into it. I don't know. But nonetheless, I still really enjoy this game, and I'm always happy every time I think of the Stray Sheep. At number 5, we have Code Vein, which... the joking title of Anime Souls is not very far off. This game, where you play as a revenant, which is essentially kind of like a vampire, someone who cannot die unless certain things happen. So you are just in a loop of going out, getting killed, being revived, and going out again, and each time you die you can potentially lose yourself, and the entire city that you're in is just filled with these as the world around you is crumbling and collapsing. And essentially that is where you start off. Lots of fun character design, lots of fun world design, like some of the visuals are really pleasing, along with weapons are kind of fun and whatnot. The game is definitely a Dark Souls-like game. It feels a bit more floaty than Dark Souls. Here's the big issue with this game, because I really like Dark Souls and I've played Dark Souls a lot. Playing something like this, where it's like Dark Souls but slightly different, I feel like, not that there's anything wrong with it, but the difference is just like, oh, the dodge doesn't feel right. It's like, maybe that's how they wanted the dodge to be. It's hard to say. Overall, the game is really enjoyable. And the story is fun. Very anime-esque, but enjoyable nonetheless. And I do like a lot of the mechanics. Like the whole traversing the memory scenes are always enjoyable. And just the whole visual sections of that. At number 4, we have Control. Now, Control is a game I wasn't expecting to play at all this year, but it just came out at the end of September, start of September even, and started picking it up, played it, and I feel like this game was very much made with me in mind, or at least written in. Like, a lot of the theme in the story and just the story overall, there's a lot of elements in it that really speak to me as like, oh, this is so cool. And on top of that, you have the gameplay, which is very refreshing to play a game where it's like, oh yeah, there is cover. You should take cover from time to time, but really, just being aggressive, getting out there, dodging, be like just shooting, throwing things at people, all that is typically better for you than just trying to take it slow and dodging and taking cover. And let's face it, the levitating things and throwing them at people is just very satisfying. And I love the little details. If there's nothing around for you to pick up, you just rip the floor or the wall off to throw it at them. It's really fun. And the physics in this game is really impressive as well. Although, saying all that, there is quite a few issues in terms of performance, which does hinder the game slightly, along with, I feel like the whole mechanic around equipment and randomly generated missions, or challenges I should say, is not necessary, and I feel like it muddles the game some. Honestly, that could have probably been removed or revamped or simplified or something, because I felt like I was spending too much time maybe focused on that, where I should have just been playing the game and the side quests and exploring the world. It's hard to say, but this game is really good, and I'll think highly of it as time goes on more and more, most likely. At number 3, we have Sekiro. Now, as mentioned before in this list, I'm a fan of Dark Souls. So when a new From Software game comes out and it's Dark Souls-like, I'm all over it, and I was all over this. Sekiro, I would argue, is the hardest out of the Dark Souls games, simply for the fact that the game forces you to a certain playstyle. You are going to use this sword, you are going to parry, you're going to dodge, do all that, else you're just going to die a bunch. And it took me a while to get that into my head, and you can probably tell when I play it, when you watch me play it even, I get very frustrated up until that penny drops. And after that dropped, I was able to start to enjoy the game a lot more. And the world they built and the plot and all that stuff, it's very From Software, and I just love the theming of it all. So they did a really good job with it. And the only reason it's not any higher is just the other two games have really knocked out the park as well. And I think the whole forcing you into a certain playstyle is the only thing that's stopping this from going any higher for me, because it's not a playstyle I enjoy too much. That being said, I do love the fact that we have a actual definitive character for him, for Sekiro being Sekiro, and the plot and having them actually feel like a actual character for once rather than just a voiceless champion. It was very refreshing to see, and I want to see more Sekiro. That's definitely for sure. Next up, we have Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers. Like Control, I feel like a lot of the story and the elements of this expansion definitely feels like something that was made for me specifically. A lot of the themes, such as too much light in the balance and alternate worlds and all this stuff, is just like, yes, I love this stuff, and they do it great. And there's fairies, and they've definitely improved a lot of the storytelling and just generally events that happen or the missions that happen throughout the way. I definitely feel like the player count is more involved, actively actually giving us more choices throughout the dialogue and just having us feel like more of a presence than they have in the previous years, which each one has improved each time. So that, along with such a rich and amazing story and the visuals in this place, like some of the areas you go to and the bosses you fight or enemies you fight even, is just visually moreish, and it's just such a good game. Also, the music's awesome too. So yeah, highly recommend Shadowbringers. And for my number one game of the year is Bloodstained Ritual of the Night. I love this game. I don't know what much else I could say. It's a Metroidvania game made by Iga, someone who pioneered and popularized the Metroidvania game with his Symphony of the Night and other Castlevania games he made. And this is exactly what I wanted when I kickstarted it, if not more. The game is amazing. I enjoy Miriam, and her as a character is great. The whole experience, I was smiling, I was enjoying myself, and I will probably be doing the same thing again every time I play it. It's a fun game to play. There's no section that I can think of that goes, oh, now I have to do this bit, or now I have to try and do X, Y, and Z to try and get the full ending and blah, 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 blah. Overall, I loved the game, and I can't really complain about anything. There's probably stuff I would complain about given more time to think, but nothing has come to my head right now. I do know when I first saw that they were deciding to do 3D models, it's like, it's a shame, I really like the sprites. But they nailed it. They got the shaders right. There's promise of more content for the game, which I'm looking forward to, and honestly, I hope this is the start of a new franchise. I mean, they've already got 2 games under their belt, and I want a third. So yeah, hopefully this is not the last we see of Miriam. So yeah, that was my list of top 10 games in 2019. It was crazy, both in the gaming world and outside, and we just generally had a lot of good games. Maybe not spread out as much as I would have liked them to, but a lot of great things came out this year. So hopefully next year we'll continue the trend. I already know that next year is going to be a very busy year in terms of games. Looking at the release schedule, who needs sleep anyways? Till next time, goodbye.